Well, once again, I'm speaking with Chris Everett. She is the author of The Prescription for a Healthy Retirement. Chris, thank you so much for joining me again today. We'll
No.
be speaking we'll be speaking about chapter 2, which is the retirement shield. So, for people that maybe haven't read your book yet or have a copy and it's on their nightstand and they're ready to dive into it, can you explain a little bit what the retirement shield is and how it can be beneficial to a client? Because you use the illustration of black ice and how it can be very invisible, but it can be also really dangerous. So, explain that analogy a little bit and then dive into what exactly the retirement shield is.
Sure. I think first and foremost, the retirement shield is clarity. In setting aside the time to really understand what you have done so far, and it's going to take you is huge. And once you get that clarity, then move certain levers in your life and make some changes and see the impact of that change. So it's being really well informed. When you think about black ice, though, I think back to 1999. I had a client who they had saved pretty well. And frankly, I don't know if you remember how the markets were in 1999 and over the next few years, but 1999 markets really shot up like a rocket. And so a lot of the advancement in their portfolio had been generated that year. So pretty good savers, but really robust returns. And so they weren't my clients yet. They were talking to me, they were talking to some other people, and they wanted to retire. And my advice was that they could, but they needed to take some risk off the table. Um, Back then, though, there was this mentality that double-digit rates of return were a no-brainer and expected by the general population because they had gone up for quite a while. But that's a fallacy. Everything doesn't go up forever, does it? And since they were so close to wanting to pull that retirement trigger, my advice was to let's just pull some of that money over to the side to be safe so that we don't jeopardize. Because if the markets turn sour, you'll be disappointed. And they weren't the only ones thinking that way. As I mentioned, many people were believing that high double-digit rates of return were just a no-brainer and they should expect it. They got disappointed because in 2000, 2001, 2002, the markets just went down. We had towers, we had the Enron debacle, we just had so much chaos. The dot-com bubble burst in 2000. So they just saw their retirement hit some serious black ice.
Mm.
Thought I shut everything off.
You're fine.
And so when that occurred, they had to postpone retirement.
Wow.
So it doesn't make sense. Taking that amount of risk when you're so close to retirement. And for me now, I've been doing this for 30 years. Anytime you're 5 or 10 years from retirement, you should really look at this. The reason I know that to be true is because from 2000 to, it took till 2007 for them to just break even. That's a 7-year period of time.
Wow.
Do you remember what happened in 2008?
Yes.
Housing crisis. And so when we had that financial crisis, it took another 13 years just to break even. So do you know when you're getting ready to hit retirement, if you're heading into an uptrending market or a downtrending market? It makes a huge difference. So we hire the best of the best to make sure we understand and can skate to where the puck is going versus looking backwards and say, oops, missed that one.
Hmm. Now, with the analogy of the black ice, have you yourself found yourself in that situation of hitting financial black ice? And what kind of experiences have you had with clients that have hit something similar?
Well, that's basically what I'm talking about. So they had to postpone their retirement for
Right.
another 3 years, and they had to work harder than they thought they needed to work. Think about it. you feel this sense of accomplishment. You know you have enough money to retire. There's certain things that go off inside of your body and your mind and your spirit and your heart that kind of says, okay, I can relax now. I can sit back and be okay. But when their portfolio got hit by 50%, they had now, all of a sudden, they had to re-gear up and go back to work and keep working for another few years. And that's a hard pivot when you're 65, 66 years old and you've already told yourself you're done. It was hard for them.
So the retirement shield, you describe it as being highly customizable for each and every client. They can figure out kind of what works best for them. So for someone that is looking to do the retirement shield plan, what are some of the starter questions that they need to ask when planning out their shield plan? What works best for them? What questions do they need to ask?
I think they should be asking themselves a couple of things. Not only the plan, but the planner. Make sure that whoever you're working with, I advise being a fiduciary so that you know you have someone sitting in your corner working with you, definitely for your best end. And then take your time. Just really make sure that someone is asking you not only for all the details. Like, it's one thing to say, where are your assets? Give them to me, let me manage them. I mean, that's an investment advisor rep mentality. But yes, you have to have that information. You also have to have all of the outgo, right? So someone has to take the time to really track what their expenses are. And if you look at those expenses and you know that some of them will continue for the rest of your life, or some of them will stop, some of them will have an inflation rate on them, some won't. Maybe you have a pension, maybe you don't. You're making Social Security decisions. So, for example, just this morning, we have a new client who has a pension plan, and they knew to go on the website to pull down the pension numbers, but they didn't know that the number that they got was insufficient. It was only based on if they lived forever. Well, what if you die,
Oh, wow.
But when you die, what is your survivor going to get? And what are all the choices that pension plan has, so that we can plug those components into your financial puzzle and make the best financial decision. Because at the end of the day, you want the best retirement journey possible.
Right.
So it's going to take some work. I mean, I have somebody put a Google review up there and said, she'll make you work, but it's a good idea.
Well, but working is not a bad thing. I mean, because I think so often when people look at their financial plan for the future, they have it laid out with the idea or the mentality of, this is if everything goes perfect. This is if I live forever, if I never have to go to the hospital, when that's not reality, that's not realistic. And so your plan, it seems like, is based much more in, let's plan for the unknowns, let's plan for the inevitable, and then be in a better place financially.
And also recognize that money is very different from just a mathematical calculation. So, for example, whenever I'm speaking to someone who mostly has done the work themselves, what I classify as a do-it-yourselfer, they tend to make more of a mathematical decision. So the math might be right, but math is not money. And so you have to take all of the other components and wrap it around that mathematical decision to make sure it's right or wrong. And it's not. The reason I know it's not often right is because 95% of Americans make the wrong Social Security decision. So if 95% of the people are making the wrong decision, that should tell you that they're really not doing the correct planning or getting enough information. Like I said earlier, I think it was in one of the earlier recordings that we did, where you could know what you know, but if we can expand the borders of what you know, that's where real breakthrough can occur.
Well, Chris, once again, I so appreciate your insight and just your expertise. Chris Everett is the author of The Healthy Prescription, or the prescription, I'm sorry, for a healthy retirement. Chris, show the book. I love the cover, and I so appreciate you just sharing all that you know. Your book is available on Amazon. I would highly recommend that everyone go and pick up a copy of The Prescription for a Healthy Retirement by Chris Everett.
You know what's kind of cool? We are
Yeah.
#1 national bestseller. I mean, how crazy is that?
Amazing. Well, I love it. And I'm so happy for you and how well you're doing with this book. So, again, her book is available on Amazon. Be sure to go pick up a copy. Chris, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thanks, Bethany.